In 1974, Grenada got their independence from the UK, but remained part of the Commonwealth. Before independence, two parties dominated politics, the Conservative National Party and the left-leaning Labour Party. But the Labour Party under Eric Gairy had created the Mongoose Gang, a militia used to silence opposition. Nevertheless, he had won the election of 1972, so he became Grenada's first Prime Minister, and he received aid from Chile's Pinochet. However, Maurice Bishop, a lawyer, set up an opposing group, the New Jewel Movement, a Marxist organisation. Despite uniting with the National Party, they lost the election of 1976, but because of the activities of the Mongoose Gang, many claimed the results invalid and violence began to break out in the streets. Then, in 1979, when Gairy was addressing the UN, Bishop and the New Jewel Movement seized power in a coup. Bishop banned all other parties, suspended the constitution, cracked down on opposition, and created the People's Revolutionary Army, the largest army in the region. But Bishop was still popular because, amongst other things, he granted rights to women and workers and improved the country's healthcare. Plus, he remained part of the Commonwealth, and despite their disagreements, he kept Paul Schoon as Governor General. Otherwise, he aligned Grenada with the Soviet Union and Cuba, and in return they helped build a large airport on the island. This airport worried America's Ronald Reagan because he believed it would be used by Soviet military aircraft. However, in October 1983, a faction within the New Jewel movement, led by Deputy Prime Minister Bernard Cord, demanded that Bishop either step down or share power with them. Bishop refused, so Cord placed him under house arrest. So Governor General Paul Schoon began seeking help from the United States and other Caribbean nations, so he too was placed under house arrest. Meanwhile, a large crowd demonstrated in the streets and freed Bishop. He fled to the Fort Rupert Army barracks, but after a firefight he was captured and executed on the 19th of October. By now the country was in uproar, so Hudson Austin, head of the army, forced Cord to step aside and formed a military government. To restore order, he announced a 4-day curfew, threatening to shoot anybody who left their homes. However, Schoon's appeal for help had been heard by the Conservative Prime Minister of Dominica, Eugenia Charles. She was then chair of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, and in turn she got support from the equally conservative Prime Minister of Barbados, Tom Adams, and Edward Seager of Jamaica. And the United States responded to their calls for aid and prepared to invade. However, many suspect that Ronald Reagan had planned to remove the communists from Grenada beforehand. So on the 25th of October, around 8,000 Americans and 350 Caribbean troops invaded Grenada. The Americans sent Marines to assault the northeast of the island, Navy SEALs, paratroopers and rangers to attack the south, and Navy SEALs and Delta Force landed near the capital city of St. George's. Grenada had around 700 Cuban troops, and they had military advisors from communist nations like East Germany, the Soviet Union and North Korea. But they still only had a couple thousand troops and lacked the equipment to hold the Americans back. Paul Schoon was freed on the first day, and on the second day the Cubans were defeated near the airport in the south. And although there was some early resistance, by the third day this had largely waned and St. George's fell. Hudson Austin was sentenced to life in prison, Paul Schoon was reinstalled as Governor General, and the Americans remained in Grenada for a couple of months. The invasion was popular in America, but they faced backlash amongst the international community. For instance, Britain was angry because America had invaded a member of the Commonwealth, plus the United Nations overwhelmingly opposed America's actions. In November they voted 108 to 9 against the invasion, and many nations like Trinidad and Tobago said America acted illegally.